So I'm going through the process of scudding this hide. Now scudding is just the process of pushing liquid out of the hide and other stuff that we don't want in there. And I do that in between rinses. So you can see there's all this liquid coming out, but the liquid is still kind of milky. And also this is the flesh side, and you can see there's still little strings and bits of flesh coming off. Even though my purpose isn't to remove those, and I'm not even trying, I'm just kind of scraping over the hide, and if it comes off, it comes off. So I thought I'd just show you that process real quick, even though we kind of already covered it. But also I want to show you on the other side, I started taking some of the grain off. I'll show you in a second as soon as I finish flushing this side, scudding it rather, I guess. Same thing really, same motion, just a different goal. You just do the neck real quick. You can see the liquid that's coming out is still a little milky, but it's nothing like it was the first time we went over it. It was just like almost a milk color. It's just hazy, a little milky now. Now if you guys will remember, this hide was dragged, so the grain is damaged. You can see some of it was peeling off, and you can see here there's just a lot of grain damage. It's chewed up. The grain is broken. Now the grain is the smooth part that you see on your boots or on the surface of your belt. It's the smooth surface of the leather on the hair side after the hair is pulled out. Now if you're making buckskin or usually oil tanned leather, like the stuff they use in Europe to make lederhosen and chamois, that stuff has the grain removed, so it's fuzzy on both sides. So since this grain's already damaged, I decided to go ahead and scrape it off. So you can see here that I'm scraping off that whole layer, just pushing it right off. Now that's going to leave us with a leather that has two fuzzy sides instead of one fuzzy side and one smooth side. And actually, I would say there's a good chance that this fuzzy side under the grain is going to be better for making strops than the flesh side. This process is also called frizzing, probably because it leaves the surface of the leather frizzy, or maybe the word frizzy as we know it comes from this process, or that type of leather. I don't know. So this is it. That's grain right there. Normally I'd be going through efforts to protect that, like I often will use padding on the beam, but I'm not doing any of that here because I'm lazy. The grain is already messed up on this hide a little bit. It's getting cut into small pieces. I just don't really have any reason to be extra careful. And most of the grain should survive in good shape, even if I'm not careful, except for this stuff that was already damaged. And there's certainly no problem doing bark tan this way. A lot of people I know, including myself, our very first bark tan experiments were with the grain scraped off, because we were coming from a background of making brain tanned buckskin, which you do this anyway. But it's not commonly done. Traditionally it's not a very common approach to do this process and then bark tan something. And I think that's good enough. So this goes back in rinse water, and I'll just keep doing this over and over again until I feel like it's ready. It's definitely already starting to relax and get closer to its normal, natural, more natural, flaccid kind of state. Okay, this hide is progressing. It's getting more relaxed and floppy, but it still feels kind of swollen and limey, like right up in here. And right now will probably be the 5th time I think I go over it and push stuff out by scudding on the beam. And it's about ready for the next step. So I have to prepare a solution, and the solution we're going to use is bran, wheat bran fermented in water to make an acidic solution. And that creates lactic acid, which is going to neutralize remaining lime and help remove it from the hide. It's not a necessary step for sure, but I've been doing it pretty much all the time anymore. And so I'm going to throw this on the beam and go over it real quick. You don't need to see that again. And then we're going to make the drench, which is the bran mixture. All right, this is pretty easy to make. If you've watched any of my other tanning videos, you may already know that I don't like to measure things. I never measure this. I don't measure much of anything. And I'll just take, you know, it's like this stuff's cheap. I don't mind, you know, quote unquote, wasting it. I just put some in. This is warm water. It's been sitting on the wood stove because I want this to ferment really quickly. In fact, I want it ready to use by tomorrow afternoon at the latest. And I'm really not going to add much water. In fact, I think that's fine there. Ooh, that's hot. And I'm going to keep this warm all night. If I have anything fermented in the fridge, like yogurt or pickles or anything like that, I'll throw some of that in, although I don't think I do. But you know, that kind of stuff is everywhere, so just getting my hands in here, this pot isn't clean. It's gonna ferment. It's just that I could maybe get it going a little faster if I threw something with bacterias that I want that will ferment this stuff into lactic acid. So we're gonna let this ferment. It's gonna get all fizzy, and then we're gonna add some more water, put the hide in for a while, and the acids that are produced will neutralize the remaining lime, and that's that. There's another process that's very similar to this called baiting, which I often do, but I'm not gonna do it on this hide because I don't think it's necessary. And that is the same thing, but using chicken poop. And it sounds grosser than it actually is, but it's the same thing, you know, like a couple handfuls of chicken poop, water, let it ferment for a little while, strain it, put the hide in, and it has other effects. But we'll talk about that some other time. For now, that's like a little more advanced than any beginning tanner really needs to be doing anyway. And even this is optional. I used to just use vinegar, but I like doing this now. So this is going to stay warm all night. I'm going to make sure of it. I'm going to put it by the wood stove, throw on a big old log, and keep it going all night long. And it should be ready tomorrow. We'll move on. Okay, here's the hide in the bran. It's been in here since last night. I just threw it in real quick. I didn't get that on video. I had to run out real fast and just bad timing. But anyway, I had fermented this, you know, batch of bran in water that we made by the wood stove, and by the time I put the hide in it, it was already finished fermenting. Like there were no bubbles, new bubbles forming. And I usually put the hide in with the fermenting bran, but I'm sure this will be fine. So what we're going to do now is just rinse off some of this bran, put it on the beam, scrape off some more of the bran, and scrape out more of this liquid, put it into fresh water to just hold until we get some bark liquor made. And then it's time to chop bark. We need to chop a whole bunch of bark to make this project happen. You can see that drench loosened up the last bits of tissue on the flesh side here. And I think between that and the bran is offering some resistance to the tanning knife. I'm getting quite a bit of tissue. Shut up! Shut up! Loudmouth. So this hide has some issues due to procrastination. At some point, I don't remember the timeline, but at some point I had realized I hadn't stirred it enough and had just kind of put these hides in there, which I have a whole video on not doing that. I mean, you know, when it comes to tanning, do as I say, not as I do, trust me. Because, you know, my brain is so all over the place and into so many different projects and stuff that I forget, you know, to do anything. And, you know, it's just really hard for me to keep up with stuff like that. I'm not a good maintenance person. So right here you can see some little divots. Those are weak spots, probably from bacteria. Like maybe I put it in the lime, but I didn't really you know, stir it around often enough. I don't know if you can see it, but there's another one right here that looks similar. So that could be where like there wasn't enough lime acting on the skin, so bacteria rotted that part of the skin. And we'll see how it turns out. You know, what I really wanted to do with this skin is to rush it through the process more and do a quick lime, because deer hide tends to be spongy and soft and loose fibered, and I don't want it too loose fibered like that to make strops out of, because it'll just be kind of too floppy. I wanted something a little firmer. But again, like I've said all along, if this doesn't work out, that's okay. We'll just use a different leather, but at least you guys get to see the basic process here. And then of course over here where the grain was damaged, I've scraped off a bunch of the grain. And honestly, I'm tempted to scrape more of it off, because I have a feeling that this side might end up being nice for the strops. I think I'll just clean up this edge a little bit is what I'll do. This deer also has a lot of scars. Can you see this right here? There's a big scar there. I mean, it's got, this deer was a fighter. Look at, well, you probably won't be able to see them really, but this area, there's a big scar right here. There's one here, 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 here. The thing's just tore up. That may get in our way too. Because, having a big old scar, bunch of scar tissue in the middle of your strop is probably not the best thing ever. This is so satisfying. I mean, especially with bark tanning like this, vegetable tanning, it's really not that hard of work. But there's just a lot of satisfaction in it from taking, you're always taking off all this stuff that you don't want, and you get to see the hide start to change at like all these different stages that it goes through. It's just really satisfying work where you get to see your results unfolding before your eyes, Okay, so I've scraped over the entire hide again. It's going back in fresh water, and we're going to chop some bark, because I could put this in bark right now, but I don't have any. I don't want it to be sitting around in fresh water. The longer it sits around just hanging out, the more we're going to start to lose the substance of the hide. It gets attacked by bacteria and is going to start to literally, break down and dissolve. So it's ready to go in right now. Like I would put it in right now if I had the stuff ready. So hopefully by tomorrow we'll have some bark solution ready. I covered the bark just with water. You know, I just barely covered it with water. Well, maybe a couple inches over the top. And I cooked it for a few hours. And now it's ready to pour. So I'm just going to use the lid to strain it. I don't mind if there's, you know, a little bit of bark in there. That's no big deal. But I just don't want all the bark to fall out because we're going to reboil the bark for a second, kind of a second cook. You see that's nice and rich, dark red. And it's heavy. I think this pot's 5 gallons. You guys can't really see that, can you? Maybe that will help. That's about the best we're going to do right here today. We're improvising here. So I just want to get most of the liquor out. And I'm going to recover this with water and cook it for another probably 3 hours. Just to get as much as we can out of the bark, because as you could see, chopping the bark was quite a bit of work. And also gathering the bark is quite a bit of work, so I want to make sure we get the most out of it.